Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. As we get ready for free agency, I wanted to bring you a player who had to leave via free agency a year ago, a fan favorite, running back Chris Thompson. Just a special guy to deal with over the years, and I know, again, a fan favorite. So while there will be a lot to discuss with free agency over the next week and beyond, it's also something we've been speculating on for a couple months, so hopefully you are prepared as to what may or may not happen or their philosophy. So I wanted to give you something a little bit different today. Thompson was always a personal favorite because of his professionalism, ability to provide deep insight into his game, his improvements, and just a good guy to deal with. As a reminder, you can read my work on ESPN.com. There will be constant updates on Washington's free agency moves. I do have a story up now dealing with free agency, where they can find the best value. Is it in free agency or the draft? Both. As former NFL GM Mike Tannenbaum told me for the article, knowing a position is strong in the draft allows teams to feel more comfortable walking away if the deal gets too rich for their blood in free agency. Among those kind of positions in the draft, where Washington needs help, receiver, linebacker, offensive line, especially tackle. That does not mean they won't pursue those spots in free agency, especially receiver. It just means if they fail to have excellent options in draft, then they can walk away. But as others have said, you can't fill every need in the draft, so you won't always wait just because it's good in the draft. If you can get a guy now, you get him, then you can focus on something else in the draft. I do expect them to be aggressive for guys they like. I've been saying that for a while, as have some others. After missing out on receiver Amari Cooper last year as their big catch, I do expect, or maybe better yet, predict that they'll land one of their key guys this period. As others who have worked for Dan Snyder have told me, you can't miss for your top targets under him very often without getting in a lot of trouble. And as some others have told me, this is where guys like Martin Mayhew and Marty Herney can help a cap guy such as Rob Rogers close these deals. One thing I know they want to add at receiver is speed. Now, some of the top targets don't necessarily have burner speed, but they are playmakers. Kenny Golladay is a 4-5 guy who makes big plays. Juju Schuster is not a burner, and to be honest, I'm not sure I'd pay him a monster deal, but he is tough, and he does kind of bring a mindset. Speed guys, Corey Davis, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, Nelson Aguilar in particular. And again, the draft is deep there. Not sure about linebacker. I know they want Kevin Pierre-Louis back. Not sure about a guy like Jalen Brown. I was told the other day there'd been no interest communicated to that point. Now, doesn't mean there won't be when legal tampering begins on Monday. A lot of times people know by now, but certainly not always. I do think they'll come out of this with a quarterback. I don't know who for sure or what, but I do think Marcus Mariota remains a definite possibility, especially if the Raiders release him. Of course, you know all the other names. You can run it down yourself, but that's what I'm paying attention to, because if they release him because of the cap, we already know that they have interest in him, and I think that would be interesting. With Washington's own free agents, Dustin Hopkins will be back on a one-year deal. I know they've been talking to Nick Sundberg. We know that they want Ronald Darby back, but also know he understands he'll have options in free agency, what makes it a little tougher. We know Ryan Kerrigan wants to start again, but in talking to some people around the league, they view him as a situational guy at this point. So I don't know if he's going to find what he wants outside of here. I haven't received a good answer from anyone here if they want to bring him back in a lesser role, or if he seems like he might be okay with that, but I know he wants to start. I do know, and we'll see. I mean, I haven't talked to every team. It just takes one. But when when I talk to the people I have talked to saw him as situational. I do know as of a few days ago, there'd been no contact with Washington. I don't know yet if that's changed. If it does, you can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram, John Con ESPN, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, ESPN.com. Finally, Washington enters free agency with the sixth most salary cap room. That doesn't mean they're going to use it all in free agency. And please remember not to panic if there's no move right away. Though, again, I think there will be. I think someday I hope people realize there are more ways to improve than just signing a guy on the first day of free agency. Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick were key signings that did not happen, that they were not greeted with parades. Also remember that when you see a per year average, just wait until you see the contract details before truly understanding the move and what the money means. The initial money is always designed mostly for the agent to make it look better than it probably ends up being. It's also funny because you haven't seen as many rumors about Washington's plans. It's outside of quarterback. While you can credit them for being more quiet, fewer leaks, whatever, The bigger reason, I think, is really the loss of the combine. That's where the gossip starts. It's easier to be quiet when you're in your own building. The combine, the number of conversations is off the charts. That's not just here, it's with any team. Bumping into guys in the hotel lobby, whatever, it always leads to conversations about free agency, who they might get. Maybe you may find out some guys that they're not going to tell you all their plans, but you are going to find out some stuff there. With the loss of that, I think you've seen that around the league, that you don't see as many things coming out. Anyway, that's all I have to say. After this break, I'll be back with former Washington running back Chris Thompson. He goes in depth on how much it hurt him to leave Washington.
We want the best of both worlds. We want a hybrid. A smarter hybrid cloud approach with IBM helps retailers manage supply chains with Watson AI while predicting demands with ease. The world is going hybrid with IBM. Visit ibm.com/hybrid cloud.
What's up? It's Mike Jones from the Football Jones podcast. I know you're enjoying your time with the John Keim Report, but once you're done, I want to invite you to come over and check out my podcast. Each week, we take a deep dive into some of the most pressing topics around the NFL. High-profile guests from the coach, player, and front office ranks, as well as the top league insiders. Check out the Football Jones podcast, another fine product brought to you by Empire Media.
Welcome back. Now here's my conversation with Chris Thompson. Well, Chris, before we get into other things, I just want to, how you doing? How is the daughter? How's everything going?
Oh, I'm good. Everything's good. My daughter's running around like crazy now. Everybody's good. Just enjoying this Florida weather. It's been nice.
Well, because she's now about 15 months
15,
or so?
Yep.
So she's already running around pretty well?
Yeah, she started walking at 10 months. So now she's just all over. Doesn't stop till 8 o'clock at night, bedtime.
How are the option routes by her? Is she able to juke a linebacker yet?
She ain't got there yet, but
okay.
She slowly.
Okay, well, good. And how's your back?
Oh, it's good. I just got cleared by the doctors like 3 weeks ago, so it's good, good to go. I've been working out. I don't get any pain. It just feels tired sometimes, basically muscle weakness. And once I heal up those muscles around the fracture, I'll be fine.
Was it weird for you last year not being here?
Yeah. It was weird. Honestly, it was pretty tough. I realized after being in Washington for so long that I have maybe separation anxiety, maybe what you would call it. It was very difficult for me to separate myself from that. So for me, I mean, it sounds bad, but it's not bad. Even in relationships, I'm not a person, whether relationships, friendships, anything, it's hard for me to separate. So I'm not a person that can just up and leave. Right. And just, or, this person not my friend anymore. I can't do that. I have a hard time separating. So for me, it was tough. It took me a long time to just kind of get over that and realize that phase of my life is over.
How much did you pay attention to what was going on here throughout? I know you got your own season going on, but then you get hurt, so you're out. But how much you were paying attention to what they did down the stretch here?
All the time. I pay attention to those guys all the time. I mean, it's guys that I met there that will be guys that I continue to stay in contact with for the rest of my life, and I root for them heavy. And one big thing for me that I feel that helped me, and I never said anything about it, but Dan texted me and just thanked me for my time there and everything I did while I was healthy and on and off the field. And to me, that meant a lot. And I know the fan base is not not too fond of him, but over my last, I say 3 or 4 years there, I got to talk to him more and get to know him more, and I started to like him, or I liked him even more than I did before. And to me, that just meant a lot. That was a game changer for me, just to hear from him, because he didn't have to reach out.
And he doesn't always do that with others too.
Yeah. And so that meant a lot to me that he reached out to me and thanked me for all my time there.
And we had, you and I had talked throughout the spring, because I did that story on you, what it was like in free agency and all that. But, throughout that, what was the hardest part, for you leaving here? What was there a time where you just said this was the hardest day thinking about leaving here or actually doing it? What was the hardest part? Or when was?
For me, the hardest day I had through this whole process was the day before free agency started. And once free agency starts, you're not able to go back in the building anymore. So I had talked to Dan before that, so I kind of knew what the situation was, and to have to go through and give my goodbyes to everybody and people that some that I may never see again, and some I won't see for a while unless I'm visiting Virginia. Just having to say goodbye to all those people after being there, being with them, and building those relationships for 7 years was hard. That was a tough day, and I think that was why I had such a hard time separating as well, was the people, the non-athletes that were in the building. And I had a relationship with y'all, with reporters. Right. I talked to y'all every day. So it was just that whole part of it was hard for me. And this is kind of a side note, but I don't know if you remember, I think it was probably 2014 or 2015. You had wrote an article about guys that you thought, didn't have a shot to make the team. And I had an issue with it. And remember, we had that whole, me and you, we talked about it. And looking back on everything now, it's crazy that for me, being a young guy, I really didn't understand the role. As reporters, you have a job to do as well. And as a young guy, I didn't really understand that. And then now being an older guy, and after being with the team so long, you became one of my favorite people, which is crazy. And one of the ones that continue to, stay in contact with me, which means a lot to me. But that's what that was the battles for me. Yeah. And the hardest part was just, everybody. It wasn't just my teammates. It was everybody. Just having everything just, it just gets cut off, and it's just like that. And that is tough.
And it's funny, you guys, from this end, and I was just thinking about this before I started talking, you're in my top 5 of favorites to deal with, and it's over my time here, because the professionalism, the consistency, and just the likability, and just how much time you gave us. But it was always you always had something to say. And, I put Santana Moss is up there, Darryl Green, John Jansen, guys like John Jansen, Champ Bailey was up there. So that's how I always viewed you, because it was the professionalism. That's, and from this end, that's something that's always appreciated, is that. And not to mention the fact that whenever we talked to you, you always gave us something, not outlandish, but something insightful. Yeah. And there were little things, I remember you talking one time about how you had to learn how to pause, to run your routes with more patience, and how Pierre Thomas had helped you realize that. And you had a play where you did that, and but you share that insight, which is always appreciated and tremendous. So I always wanted to tell you that, but that was something that from this end that I know I and others always appreciated. So that was really good. But I am curious for you now, how you look. I'll get to that in a minute. But when you look at when you would watch these guys, what things would jump out to you? And was it weird watching a guy like J.D. McKissic, who was essentially kind of filling that role that you had?
It's crazy because, like, you know, looking back at it, or on the outside looking in, it's like, oh, they brought in this guy to basically take what my job, what my role was. And for, you know, some guys, or, you know, whatever job you're in, it's kind of a tough thing to deal with and to see. But like for me, I was excited about it. Like at first I was like, I know I can do some things for this offense, but then for me, reality hit my situation with my injuries and everything. You know, reality just, it hit me, and then I was like, all right, who are they gonna bring in? They drafted Gibson, and I was like, oh, this guy, like, he can do it all. Like, he's gonna be good. And then they signed McKissic, and I was like, bro, this is about to be unfair. Like, because he's truly a receiver that can play running back. That's just my opinion of who he is. And I think he had 80-something catches, or almost 100.
Used a lot.
Yeah, he had a lot. It was just him and I think Alvin Kamara. But like, to see that, I was just like, I was super psyched for him. I was happy for Coach Jordan, because he, you know, he gets to coach these guys. And,
yeah.
He had a great room with Gibson, Barber, and McKissic there. But to see like what everything he's done, like the one thing that I thought about, I'm like, you know, I guess for the history books, I got up somewhere with, I think, receptions or yards or whatever. And I was like, man, he keeps on this pace, like he'll break it in 2 years, 3 years. Like, so I get excited to see stuff like that, and just hoping like he has the most success in that offense. And, you know, hopefully they keep him around, because he's a younger guy too, right? I believe.
Yeah, he hasn't been playing running back for too long.
Yeah, so. And he was really playing slot receiver in Detroit.
Right.
So, you know, he has some longevity to him, I think, with the role and the position he plays.
When you would watch him, you talk about playing receiver, and that's one thing that I watched him on when he, after he signed, watched him plays in Detroit. He ran some routes that running backs traditionally don't seem to run a lot of. I mean, what kind of things jumped out at you when you would watch him in that regard?
Yeah, it was just like, for me, seeing him some games in Detroit, for one, I'll go back to Detroit, just seeing him line up in the slot. And I mean, their starting running back is in, but he's lining up truly as the slot receiver, as that number 3 receiver, and just looking at all the routes he was running. I was like, man, with that offense that had McCaffrey, he's going to be all over the place. And then with the talent that Gibson has, I was like, just with them two together, it's so many options that you have to work with two guys like that. And he, to me, like, if you put him in the backfield, there's no way that you can have a proper matchup for it.
Right.
Like, you know, for DBs, most teams will usually just put a safety there. You don't want to use one of your cornerbacks, because then if you run the ball, you got a small body there. You got a smaller body there, like in the box. So it's a mismatch all over the place. Just having a guy like that. And yeah, that was pretty much it. Just he's a mismatch when he's on the field. You can't. The only way you can stop him, I think, is you have to put like a true nickel corner out there on him.
You know, and you know, it's funny because he was very effective, and he's a really good guy too to deal with. One thing though, it's funny because sometimes I'll go back to, I think it was 2017 when you get hurt in New Orleans. That year, how good you were.
Yeah.
And when you were, I think, because that was the year you guys were trying to place Deshaun Jackson. I remember even writing like early in the year, you were the new Deshaun Jackson in terms of big play.
Big play, yeah.
How often do you look back to that moment? Because we saw you coming off on the stretcher after the game. Like, I'm not sure I've seen a guy as crushed as you were in that moment because of what that season was, what it had to mean for you. But do you look back on that moment at all? And or that?
Yeah, I mean, I look back on it, and it's tough sometimes because of the season that I was having. That was, my career year right there, where I don't know what my numbers would have looked like if I played the last, I think, 7 games. Like, I was on a crazy pace. I think averaging 17, 18 yards of reception or something like that. Like, it was just amazing. Like, everything just seemed to be falling into place that year for me. And, sometimes those conversations are had, like, what if you didn't get hurt? Like, well, not so much what if, but can you imagine what life could have been like if you didn't get hurt? Because I had just signed my new deal, but think about if I played it out and had, maybe a Pro Bowl year, possibly, that would have changed a lot of things, for me. And but it's one of those things as well. Like, I try not to think about it. Like, for me, everything happens for a reason. And
sure.
It's I go back and look at the highlights to enjoy them, but I don't talk so much or worry so much on what could have been. That's more so like friends and family. And
yeah. And listen, you're in the sport you're in, and people get hurt and all that. It's just, I was looking at that the other day, and I do remember thinking, like, you are the new Deshaun Jackson as far as the big plays that you gave them, and it was consistent, and you were killing guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I don't have to tell you that, but you were killing guys, and they put a linebacker. It just anyway. But you're also, you had those injuries. You're 30 years old, and you've been through a lot. How much do you want to keep playing?
Well, that's one thing that's been a conversation. For me, like, I have had way too many injuries in my opinion, but to me, like, as other than my ankle in 2017, I feel like I haven't had anything that's like hindered me in my abilities. My ankle still gets sore from time to time, but it doesn't affect me as far as like, I don't have, thinking about like, oh, I don't have the ability to cut like I used to or anything. Like, it doesn't affect me in that way. It's just, it gets sore. It still gets sore, 3 years later. But I still want to play. My biggest thing and one of my biggest goals was to make it to 10 years. And if anything happens after that, then that's an added bonus. But my goal, I want to do at least 10. And I'm 2 years off of that. So hopefully I get some opportunities here soon, and we'll see what happens. I know and understand, like, with my injury history and then just having a back injury, teams are a little skeptical and scared to kind of mess with guys that have injuries dealing with a back and stuff. So just gotta wait and see.
What is it that you still like about this game? Because again, you've been through a lot. So what is it that you still like when you say, like, yeah, I know I've had this and this and this, but I still love this part of it?
Just being with the guys, and being able to help younger guys now. Like, for me, after being in the league for so long, and outside of the injuries, just being in the league for so long and everything that I've learned, I enjoy like helping the younger guys, out as much as I possibly can. And then I just love playing ball. Like I love it. And that's why I just can't like give up regardless of what I go through. I still have that love for it like I did when I was a little kid. And that's really what keeps me going. And then that being in that locker room, there's just it's nothing like it. Just having guys from all different areas from all across the US, some coming from other countries. It's nothing like it. And I love that part. To me it's not about the money. Like I'm not a person that ever cared about that. I just love being around the guys and just playing the game. And like I've said a lot, it's a kid's game, and I'm blessed and I'm grateful that I'm able to do this, and I just want to do it as long as my body will let me, and as long as my mentals are in place and I'm good mentally, I'll keep playing.
Introducing the new Verizon Business Unlimited plans. Now you can pick a plan for as low as $30 a month per line with AutoPay. Get 5G nationwide, plus massive data capacity, plus spam blocking features. And with Verizon Business Unlimited, you can mix and match the right plans for your business so you get more of what you need and none of what you don't. From Verizon, the network businesses rely on. 5G nationwide, available in 1,800 plus cities on most VZ 5G devices. Monthly per line pricing with 5 plus lines on Biz Unlimited Start. Device payment, smartphone purchase. Autopay and paper-free billing required. Terms apply.
Support for this podcast comes from Wild Turkey Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Let's tune in to their one-on-one with Jamal, a real bartender from Old Fourth Ward in Atlanta.
I really get into the backstory of whatever I'm pouring, out of respect. There are literally years of experience behind these bottles. Wild Turkey, same recipe since 1942. If you want a true classic, this is what you want to order.
Wild Turkey. Wild Turkey Distilling Company, Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. Copyright 2020, Campari American, New York, New York. Never compromise, drink responsibly.
Hey, this is Joel Corey from Inside the Cap. I know you're enjoying the John Keim Report, which gives you insider access to the Washington football team, everything you want to know, which is going on with the Washington football team. Once you're done with that, check out my podcast, Inside the Cap, which gives you the ins and outs of the NFL salary cap and player contract negotiations. Check out these two products and other fine podcasts from Empire Media.
One of the things I always appreciated about what you did is that it seemed like every year that you would work on something else to get better. Like one year you became a better pass protector, you became a better route runner because you're spending time with receivers, and it seemed like, and you learned how to run them. And again, like we talked about with like Pierre Thomas, at a different pace to understand how it sets up. How do you look back in your career as to why you've been able to last? Is that how much of that is a big key in all that?
I think it's been huge. And then I think for me, one of the biggest things I learned about the NFL and being able to last long, like it's hard to get in. I feel like it's easier to stay in. And one way that you can stay in is you figure out what you're good at and try to be the best at that. Don't try to be like everybody else. Like I would never be AP. I would never be James Robinson or Alvin Kamara or Derrick Henry. I'm not built that way. But I figured out what I can do, and I did it consistently, and I'm still able to do it on a consistent basis to where coaches trust me. They know what I can do. They don't worry about me so much making mistakes. I'm consistent in what I do. I'm consistent in my approach and the way that I go about my work and my professionalism. And I feel like that's what separates guys is, finding what it is that makes you who you are and then being consistent with it. And once you can figure out those two things, you can stay in this league. And that's why you see a lot of these special teams guys that last for years. Nick Sundberg will play until he's 55 if he wants to, because he's never had a bad snap. At least I haven't seen it. In the 7 years I was with him, I never saw him have a bad snap. It's things like that that keeps these guys in. And then you look at guys like, I just saw Justin Bethel just signed a extension, and he was a top cornerback in college. He did good as a cornerback when he was in, I think it was Arizona, but he was also a special teams guy there. And I know, like, it has to be hard mentally when you come from college being that guy to then them saying, okay, you're a special teams guy, but he got great at it. And now he's considered one of the better special teams players in this league. I'm sure he didn't come in thinking that, oh, I'm going to just be a special teams guy, but he has. And he's going to play for a long time. Matthew Slater, same way. He's going to play for a long time. And they found out what they're really good at, and they've been consistent with it, and that's what keeps you in.
One thing, too, that I remember a few years ago, you talked about battling confidence issues, or are they trying to get that? And people look at you guys like you're, I don't want to say robots, but you're pro athletes. You're in the league and all that. How hard is it, though? Because everything is relative. So how many guys you think kind of battle that, and what helped you get past that?
It's tough. And for me, it's one of those things I still struggle with from time to time, and it'll happen throughout the season. Sometimes it happens during the off season or after injuries or something like that. But it's tough. It's tough. And I think it's just one of those things where you have to just figure yourself out and figure out what makes you you. And then you just have to stick with the fact that you truly believe that you are who you are, and you are great at whatever it is that you do. And you have to keep reminding yourself of that, because there's a lot of things that happen throughout your NFL careers and even throughout games that can just it can take you like far left, and you're like, who in the world is this player? And I'll bring up Zeke, for example. He's not a guy that had a lot of fumbles and stuff his career, but he had a lot this year. And this guy that I play Xbox with was asking me, he was like, why did he have such a bad season as far as like fumbling? And I said, the biggest thing is your confidence. And once it happens one time, it's always stuck in the back of your head. And you're like, the more you think about, I don't want this to happen, it's going to happen again. And it's one of those things where you have to remind yourself, like, for Zeke knows who he is. Everybody knows who Zeke is. He's not a guy that fumbles the ball a lot, but it's one of those tough things. Like, you gotta, I'm not this guy. I might have had a bad game, but this is not who I am. And you have to constantly remind yourself of that. And if you don't, it gets tough, and it wears on you mentally. And that's where sometimes guys will just go from being this player to like, I don't know who he is or who this guy is, like, or some people are like, well, what happened to him? If they're not a guy that has gotten older in their early late 30s, when physical ability starts to leave you. But yeah, I feel like that's, for me, I know for me, that was my key, was realizing who I am and sticking to it, and not comparing myself to everybody else, because right. that's where I struggled with at first, trying to be like a lot of different guys. And you can look at them and learn from them, but you can't be them. You can't do what they do.
What was your favorite moment? Do you have a moment that stands out from your time here?
That night coming back from Philly in 2015 when we won the division, and there were so many fans at Redskins Park that we couldn't even get the buses through to get to our cars. Like, they were so hyped and excited for us, like winning the division again and making it to the playoffs. That I'll never forget that day. Like, that was exciting. That was an exciting week for me as well. And I'll never forget that. And that's that feeling that I've been chasing and been wanting for a long time. And then to see the guys get there, and, you know, guys like that I was there with for years, Kerrigan, Morgan, those guys that I was with, you know, 6 or more years or whatever, just to see them get there again and have that feeling again. Like, I was super excited for them, because you can't explain that feeling. And that's one thing that I've been like, man, I can't. Before I'm done, I want that feeling again. Before I'm done playing, I want that feeling, and like, I will do anything possible to feel that again.
What do you think held you guys back after that? I know you guys got close, but was there something that you felt maybe held you guys back a little bit, or was a reason why maybe it didn't get to where you guys wanted to go?
That's tough to say. I don't know. I know sometimes it's hard it's not an easy thing to get in the playoffs, for one. And then for two, it's hard sometimes to be able to figure out how to control everybody's emotion and confidence after having what some is considered like the greatest level of success. Like, when you think about it, like, for me, looking back at college, I never won a national championship. Got close to being there 1 year, my senior year, but we messed it up against NC State or whatever. But I would just say, like, a lot of people haven't come from like winning cultures. So for guys to make it into the playoffs and win the division was like, oh, we made it. To me, I'm excited about stuff like that, but I want a Super Bowl. And when you have a team that's counted out, that people don't believe in, and you make it, you have guys that come from different programs, come from different areas, where you make it 1 year and then the next, subconsciously, it's you don't put in the same amount of work, I think is the way to say it. Like, you feel like I feel everybody works hard. We're all NFL players, we all work hard, but you have to take it to, once you make it one time, you have to kind of take it to another level. And I don't know how as a full group you get there, but you have to take it to another level. And that's physically and mentally. And we obviously lost in the first round. That wasn't good enough. And it was a horrible loss. It shouldn't have happened the way that it did. But it's that confidence going back in sometimes that it can hurt sometimes when you make it and you have that confidence, like, oh, we made it one time, we can make it next year, like, we good, instead of like, all right, you have to wipe that out and we got to start new and just grind this thing out all over again and remember some of the steps that helped us get there, but it still wasn't good enough.
Could you tell that some guys were like that?
I always felt like guys continue to work hard, but then on the mental side, you never know.
Right.
Because like I said, everybody thinks different. You got guys from all different parts of the US, all coming together for, a common goal, which is to win a trophy, but you never know, like, mentally where they are. I don't feel like any guys like lost a step, stopped working as hard, but it's tough. Like something always changes, and that's why you see teams. You see some that consistently they're in every year, and then you see teams that, like, you're like, oh my God, what happened? And then changes happen. Players leave, coaches leave, and sometimes that could be it as well.
Sure. Absolutely. And that always plays a factor. And the line here is, I mean, listen, you guys win the last game in 2016, you're back in the playoffs,
Right.
and people are like, oh, okay, they had back-to-back years. So it's sometimes it's one game and, like, you don't play well that day. So just a couple more things. And I always appreciate your time as always. How do you look back on your career here? Because your career isn't done. So how do you look back on it here?
I thought it was great. For me, I enjoyed every single moment of it. It was awesome. Like, the only thing I really wanted more was more playoff appearances,
right?
To win more games, because I felt like we had some good key players, and I know, like, with salary cap reasons, all of that, you can't keep everybody together, but I feel like that core that we had in 15, I think it was 15, 16, with D-Jack and Pierre Garçon, like, if we could have kept that group together, I thought we could have continued to grow and to be something great.
If you had a deep threat with you coming out of the backfield, that makes a big difference.
I know it would have been fun, but that's that's pretty much it. Like, I thought it was good outside of the injuries, or with the injuries. That was one thing I wish didn't happen so much with me and my time there, and people could truly see. They got to see it, but if people could truly see, like, who I am and what I could be, in a full season. But I believe the fans enjoyed it, and the feedback I still get from fans.
I'm sure.
I enjoyed it, and my time was well spent there. And I mean, I have absolutely no regrets. Like, that was some of the greatest years of my life there.
And then I want to ask you about two quarterbacks, because you play with them both, and they're no longer here. But Alex Smith, you were there when he got hurt, and you're watching late in the year. What was it like watching him?
I was so excited to just see him come back, and be able to play the way that he did. Because a couple years ago, like, even talking to athletic trainers, getting picking a couple doctors' heads, to see what they thought about him and his injury, like, really didn't see him coming back, and being able to play, like, at a high level, and for him to just defy the odds like that and be able to come in and help them get to the playoffs. Like, it was amazing to see. And I was super excited for him. He's a great guy, and I think he deserves it. He's been one of those guys that his entire career has been full of people not believing in him. Mm-hmm. And it sucks, because he was the number one pick.
I know.
And every situation he's been in, it's, been situations where he wasn't 100% truly, believed in. And I felt like when he got here, like, he was that guy. And I feel like he felt like, oh, I truly have a chance here. and to get us in his first year up to 6-3 before his injury, like I know he was hyped for that, and it was just devastating to see him like get injured after everything like he's been through. And it's nothing against the other organizations. Business is business, but it has to be tough as a number one pick to have Colin Kaepernick come in San Fran.
Yeah.
And then I think he got injured and Cap came in and played. And then, I mean, Patrick Mahomes speaks for itself now, looking at it. But for him, like finally having some sense of security when he got here, and then injury went down like that where it looked like he would never play again, to see him come back now and be able to do what he's doing, and he's going to continue to play, it's just great to see. And I think he's inspired everybody in the football world.
And I agree with that. And I think the last one is then Dwayne Haskins. I remember talking to you last year. You were pretty optimistic about his future. Mm-hmm. Are you surprised to see where it went with him?
I'm gonna be honest. I'm not surprised, and I say that because for him, and I've said it to a lot of people, like I'm excited about his future. I did think at the time, when he was there last year as a rookie or his rookie year, that I didn't feel like he was ready to go. And I felt like at that time, the coaches were making a good decision by not playing him and continuing to let him sit back and learn the offense. But then things happened. We weren't playing as good as we were, and we had to throw him in the fire. And whether people, some people believe that's fair, that's not fair, that is fair. Every player should be ready at any time. But I think you have to consider situations that guys were in. He's one of those guys. He played 13, 15, 14 games in the last 3 years before, or his last 4 years before getting into Washington. So with a guy like that, you have to give him time to learn. And then coming from certain college offenses, there's a lot of things that you have to learn as well, going from reading posters on the sideline to going in. Now you got to call these 4 plays, go up, look at the defense. Oh, is it a 3 technique? Is it this? Is it that? Is it 1 high safety, 2 high safety? Where do I need to go with the ball? It's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to consider as a rookie. And he was thrown out there. And then I had a talk with him. I think it was either after the season or during the season. And I told him, I was like, bro, this year didn't go how any of us expected. I know this year didn't go how you expected it to go. And I want you to consider and think about one thing is reality of the situation. When new coaches come in, they're going to bring their people with them. And I said, it goes one of 2 ways. They're going to bring in their people and you get out of here, or they're going to say, okay, he's definitely our guy, and we're going to build everything around him to help try to give him the best situation that we possibly can. And they did a little bit of both, in my opinion. I would say they did both. Obviously brought in their quarterbacks with them, as any coach is going to do. And they brought in some pieces to help him, but also he was in a new offense. So you're trying to learn a completely different offense. You've been given 2 offenses in your first 2 years in the league. You got to get this, and you got to learn this in a matter of months, and we need you to go out there and perform. And being a quarterback in Washington is hard.
Yeah.
It is hard, and it's pressure. And, I feel like from what I've known about Coach Rivera, he's a guy that's well respected around the league, and he's a guy that demands the best out of his players and everything every single day. And he was given the opportunities, and it just didn't work out for him. And now he's over in Pittsburgh, and I don't know how players were, once I left Washington, but I do know some guys that's in Pittsburgh, and they're gonna put some fire up under him, and either you gonna get right, or you gonna crumble to the ground, because it's some guys there that, and I mean players, not coaches. It's some players there that's gonna, be on him and demand his very best every single day. And I think this might be really good for him. And then to be with a guy, like Big Ben, to help him, I think that'll be big too. He had Alex helping him, but sometimes it's tough to hear somebody telling you, but they can't go out there and put the work in with you. So I think he's going. I think it has the potential to be a really good situation for him.
And I always wondered with him too, is I always felt like he's a good kid. I mean, he was always nice. Sure. He's a nice, respectful kid. I think there's not, I don't hear it, and there's nothing there. I also wonder, sometimes you wonder, you see the selfie. Do you need to grow? Do you need to mature a little bit? And was that maybe a bigger sign than we realized at the time to show some of that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's why I said he needed time. It wasn't all just on the football stuff. Like he needed time to mature. Like, he's a kid. And so you have some quarterbacks that come in and they're just wired differently. Russell Wilson, I'll use for example. He was wired differently. And it's nothing against Dwayne or any other quarterback that comes in and just, still a kid just trying to learn. Everybody's wired different. Everybody's process is different. And you have to know that. You have to respect that. Sometimes you don't have the patience, or you don't have the time to be like, okay, we can sit here and be patient with this guy. Jay didn't have that. I'm going to just be honest. Like,
no, he did not.
I take not even just Jay, the whole coaching staff didn't have the time after being below average the last few years and it being the same staff. You don't have a lot of time. Like, you have to be like, okay, we got to get this right. I got to get this right now. And if I don't, then my job is on the line. And I think that has to be considered and thought about too when you look at that situation, from the outside, from, a fans' perspective, because there were a lot of people saying, oh, well, Jay just didn't put the time in, or the coaching staff just didn't put the time in, and some of them felt like they didn't have time too. Like,
it was a bad situation for young kids.
It was tough. It was tough. And arm talent, I don't think anybody that I played with at quarterback can compete with him, other than maybe RG3 as far as like arm strength and just arm talent. But you just sometimes staffs don't have time to help grow and develop guys over years, and he just needed time. He's not a bad quarterback in my opinion, and a really good kid. He just needed some time.
He is a good kid. I always like talking to him for that reason. Chris, you're awesome. I greatly appreciate your time. It was good catching up with you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Support for this podcast comes from WGU. Do you want a more skilled and effective workforce? Do you want to build loyalty and increase employee retention? A partnership with Western Governors University could be exactly what you need. Over 300 organizations nationwide already count on WGU for valuable education benefits that lead to better prepared and more capable workers. With more than 60 accredited bachelor's and master's programs to choose from, and shorter credential programs coming soon, WGU has long been a leader in making quality higher education more accessible. Flexible online learning is the key. Students can fit schooling around their existing schedules and even complete courses and degrees sooner than planned. WGU makes earning a respected degree possible with just a computer and an internet connection. Partner with WGU today to make a smart investment in your company's and employees' future. Learn more at wgu.edu/partnerships. That's wgu.edu/partnerships.
That's it for this episode. Really hope you enjoyed hearing Chris Thompson. I appreciate him joining me. And thank you, as always, for listening. I'll be back with another episode later in the week. And if there's breaking news, big breaking news, I will do a bonus podcast. Talk to you next time.